Welcome back to the Dark Reading News Desk at Black Hat USA. Terry Sweeney here, contributing editor with Dark Reading, and I'm delighted to welcome to the dais Sumant Sehgal, founder and CEO of BreachLock. Sumant, thank you so much for joining us on the
Thank you for having me, Terry.
May I call you Sam? Is that okay?
That works.
Appreciate you doing this. You have a provocative topic around offensive security, which in my biased opinion does not get enough airtime in security in general. I think I know why that is. It feels a little bit though like sex, religion, politics, money. It's not stuff that gets talked about in polite company. So thank you for opening the door onto offensive security. I think it's a timely and important topic. As we know, traditional defensive security has long been the cornerstone of most security strategies, a highly reactive kind of strategy. Tell us a bit about how you see this changing.
Well, it's changed a lot. You know, back in the day when I was working for one of the largest financial institutes, I saw a big imbalance in the defensive versus offensive security budget. And it took me like a few years to get that in balance at the bank, and that's where I realized that there's some job to be done in this space. And if you look at the 2024 spending, the Gartner projects it to over 200 billion, and the board's just asking questions to the CISO, where's my ROI on that money, right? And I think the answer to that is offensive security. Now, past 5 years, I think the industry has seen a lot of investment coming into offensive security, VC money, PEs. A lot of people are jumping in because they see the future, and in fact that's a great opportunity both for the investors and the CISOs. There is so much of ground to be covered, in terms of knowing upfront how would you score if you're attacked, rather than waiting for an incident or your neighbors getting hacked to unfold how do your defense investments will score against such an attack, right? So I think it's changing, and last 5 years have been immense progress made in this space.
So defensive security, offensive security, this isn't an either or. This is kind of a false binary. Nonetheless, defensive security has been overplayed. Offensive security has been underplayed. Any advice for organizations that are trying to get to grips with how to achieve a balance of these two approaches?
Absolutely, and I think you have to get to the bottom of this, to why this imbalance is there, right? Because everybody wants to, take out the cyber criminals and the bad guys. So I think as an industry, as a community, we are all committed to it. So we have to get to the reason why it wasn't the case that it was balanced, right? And if, when I thought about it, I went to different research papers, this and that, and the conclusion was this, that the way traditionally offensive security was dealt with, it comes from consulting companies, the accounting companies that were doing financial audits, and then they were asked to do stuff like pen testing, right, or security audits.
Okay.
And that gave it a very traditional approach, which means, here's an asset, I want to find out if a security audit can be done on this, and then I bound it to man hours, right, or human hours. And that's not the right way to deal with it, because accounting, fine, that's not a tech problem, but cybersecurity is a tech problem, so you need to deal with it in a different manner. And that's where technology comes into play. And I think, like you said in the first question, the balance needs to shift. And I think because technology will be used more and more to automate, to reduce the stress on cybersecurity professionals in terms of how much human effort is required to do a simple thing. There's been a lot of innovation, including the one from BreachLock, which has kind of helped to make that balance. And I think you're going to see that in the next 5 years, basically a game-changing offensive security balance, and the budgets will also continue to shift.
Is there a worry among boards of directors that by taking the fight back to the bad guys, that especially with the state-sponsored APT threats, like we're going to spark a global incident here, like a global computer meltdown, like that would be like a plot line out of like Mr. Robot or something? I'm just curious, like, again, like, is there that concern there?
That concern is always there, and when it comes to nation-state actors, look, they make the laws, they print the money, they've got all the resources. So that's really not a battle you can win unless it's a nation-state versus a nation-state. So I think governments also need to, up their game on offensive security and not wait for the next attack, but to see, how a systemic risk can bring a country down, right? In Europe, we have a regulation called TIBA, where we look into financial institutes and how they would score if they're attacked. Because we need to get this. If people cannot withdraw money from an ATM, and I mean like in a country, and cannot pay in the supermarket, I mean you bring a country on its knees.
That
right?
sounds bad, yeah.
So, I mean, there's also what governments need to do. There's a side to that, and I think we need to invest more in that space too. So you're absolutely right.
Can you share an incident where a customer has been able to use offensive security effectively and anonymize the details where you need to, but like a case study around this would be really helpful.
Yeah, so BreachLock serves one of the world's largest consulting companies in the world, and when they came to us, this would be a great example for the audience. They were sitting on a backlog of like 300 applications because they were turning to these traditional pen testing companies that would tell them we can come by for a pen test, but only 3 months later, right? So that's where BreachLock got in, and we were able to handle that workload in less than a year. And basically, we brought them to a place where they can now take care of the hygiene, right? As a next step, what we also did to make sure that they don't get into that situation again, we also deployed, next to our pen testing as a service, we also deployed our external attack surface management solution, which, by the way, was rated by Gartner as one of the prominent solutions in the security operation hype cycle of 2024. So we have now ESM and PTaaS working for this consulting company. The ESM makes sure that they are not having this problem again, because it automatically discovers. You can do a lot of automated pen testing on your own. And for the more deep dive stuff, you can have our certified hackers come in through the PTaaS, and basically they're a happy client with us now.
Wow, thank you for that. That's helpful to actually know like how this stuff gets used in the real world. How can a cybersecurity investment in offensive security help achieve better ROI with security? This is a topic that tears CISOs and boards apart regularly.
Well, that's a great question, Terry. And one thing that I told my CISO network every time is like, look, with the defense, you buy a detection software and then you look through the tickets and find out if it's a change that was missed or is it a real incident. But no matter what it is, you only are able to do the retrospect at the end of the year in terms of what the ROI is. With offensive security, with stuff like pen testing as a service, you see the ROI out of the gate. Right? Because here's this 10 grand that you spend on a web application pen test, and you get 5 findings, 2 of them are critical. Once you fix those, you've basically closed the door for the hackers on the 2 critical findings, which might be leading up to a PII or a credit card data, right? So the ROI in offensive security is almost immediate, right? Provided you are also remediating what the companies are finding. That's also where BreachLock helps. We do a full life cycle trace of a pen test in our platform. And I think there are a lot of other PTaaS vendors that are also doing a great job in this market, and people should just see how they can move their offensive security budget to traditional methods to this more tech-enabled approach where they can not just see all the data in one place, but also start to make sense of it, because there's also a lot of learning in the data. If you see the same finding coming in web applications and it's developed by a certain part of the company, then you also know that they're lacking some training in that area, right? Which means if you put your dollars up front on the training, then you would not have the gaps, which
Sure.
means you would save a lot of money.
Sam, what tools would you use to build an offensive security strategy?
I think there's a lot of options now in the market compared to five years ago. There's breach attack simulation software, there's automated pen testing, there's pen testing as a service, which is a multi-billion-dollar market now, and then there's external attack surface management. And I think there's a mix of solutions that CISOs need to kind of put in place, and I also see that a lot of this is going to be consolidated in the next 3 years, right? So right now, we'll take our example here, right? So we do EASM, external attack surface management, and we do pen testing as a service, and we are a prominent vendor in Gartner Hype Cycle, like I said, for both categories. And now we're pitching, on our innovation side on red teaming, so we want to develop more red teaming as a service solutions. We already offer that to our clients, but we want to take it using technology to an altogether new scale, right? So CISOs have to choose between these technologies to basically see what suits their purpose. And what I always advise my CISO friends is it's more useful to go after production if your partner knows how to
Sure.
keep their gloves on and they can make you feel safe with it. And it's not so much fun to do simulations because it's a simulation by the end of the day and you don't know what will go wrong if stuff goes south, right? And you don't know how to react to it then. So, just choose the solutions that are more focused on real world attacks, real world techniques, and then, of course, production systems.
Great advice, Sam. Thank you so much for your willingness to dive in on this provocative topic of offensive security. Thanks for doing the Dark Reading News Desk.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We've been talking with Samant Segal of BreachLock. This has been Terry Sweeney for the Dark Reading News Desk. Thanks for joining us for this segment.